having our marriage gathering is what we're calling it. Really designed for young families, young couples. As we come together, we spend about an hour or so kind of just talking about marriage and life and what's it like being married. And we hope to do this once a month. We have childcare provided, but that's coming up next Sunday, December 4th. So mark your calendars on that. And we've got Jingle All the Way happening December 17th from 10 to 2. We're still looking for volunteers. Am I correct?
Not so much.
No. We got it covered?
But new unwrapped gifts of toys can be put in the barrel before.
Okay. Okay, so talk with Deb if you've got any questions about that, Debbie and Gary. But that's coming up on the 17th from 10 to 2 here at the church. There's going to be cakewalks, sack lunches, gifts, or jingle bucks to spend for gifts. That's for the kids, right? We don't get jingle bucks. The kids get the jingle bucks. And Mr. and Mrs. Claus, they're going to be pretty awesome this year, I heard. So we got Snoopy here. Anyways, it's going to be a great time. So we usually, when I say we, the giving plate usually serves about 1,000 people, if not more, if you include parents and kids. And so this is a huge event for us in our community, and we'd love to have you come. If anything, stop by and check it out and spend some time with us. It'd be great. If you're not going to be in town, pray for us. But anyways, it's going to be a great time. So a bunch of other stuff. Check your bulletin. And so it's the holiday season, right? Yeah. It's awesome. So, all right, I'm going to pray, and then we're going to dive into the message this morning. So, Father, we thank you. Thank you for another Sunday we get to have to be a family. Lord, I know that there's a lot of families on the road coming and going, and they got family in town, and as they're wrapping up their weekend, Lord, I pray that you're blessing them and that you're encouraging their hearts as they're enjoying one another. And God, we're just thankful for you. Again, and be with our hearts today as we dive into this story, which is a really hard one to read. This is a tough one. So we're going to need all of the Spirit in us to do and say what we need to hear personally, God. So we love you and we thank you, and it's in your name we pray. Amen. All right, so grab your Bibles. We're in Judges chapter 19 is where we're at. And it's great to be back. Mike did a bang-up job last week, and so I'm excited to get to follow up on him a little bit. We are in our last lesson in the book of Judges. Next week, obviously, we start our 4-part series for Christmas, and then in January, we're picking up the book of Ruth. So I'm really excited about that. But we're finishing it up today, and I tell you, out of all the stories, this is the hardest one. And I also want to apologize if you're here with your family and it's like it's Thanksgiving weekend, so I'm really looking forward to a very fluffy message about thankfulness and gratitude, and we're going to stand up and share. This will not be that story today, and I just want to say that in advance. Wasn't planned that way, but it is what it is. The story's here in chapter 19. So we're coming back. We drove down to San Diego, Ashley and I did, a week ago Saturday, and we drove straight through, 15 hours of driving, and then we drove back yesterday about 12 hours. So not that we went faster, but we stopped by my mom's house on Saturday, which is a Friday, in Lancaster, and then drove all the way up I-5. Let me tell you something. Driving that far on a holiday weekend, I would not recommend it. First of all, I don't even know why they have signs on the road. Because they don't matter. The signs don't matter. Speed, curves, left lane turns left, right lane turns right. None of that matters. I guess just a holiday weekend. I don't even want to say it's California driving because I saw Oregon plates, Washington plates, Canadian plates. We're all doing it. We were all there. And it is a dog-eat-dog world up there. And I was wearing Milk-Bone underwear. I'm telling you, it's crazy how fast we had to go. We were going between 75, 80 miles an hour and 65 mile an hour zones, 70 mile an hour zones. There were times where the left lane's supposed to turn left, unless the line's really long. Because if the line's really long, then I guess you're justified to get in the right lane and just cut over to make the left turn. Y'all understand what I'm saying here? I mean, that's you can do that. You see, because this is the word I have up on the screen should be the word insane. It is insane. I looked up the Latin word for this. Insane is a 16th century Old English word. The N means not, and the stanus means healthy. This is not healthy, this kind of driving. This is insane driving. Because here's the thing. I think that when I'm being insane, like in my driving, for example, somewhere in my mind, I have justified and rationalized my mind that no matter what it takes or who's in my way, I'm going to get to point A to point B at a certain time. And I will do whatever it takes to get there. If I have to tailgate you, I will. If I have to cut around you, if I will. If I have to go in the ditch and come back up. It all is justified because that's where I got to be. I have this sense, excuse me, right or wrong doesn't matter. I have decided that this is what I want, and I'm going to do whatever it takes to get there. And if you're in my way, too bad. Now, how many of you have lived like that at any level of your life? You know, some of you are like, I don't know what I don't know what you're talking about. Well, that's all right. Just ask your spouse. She'll clear that up for you. But, you know, the fact of the matter is that that's what it is. I mean, like, if I need to get, I remember we were going 80 miles an hour at one point, and there was this herd of NASCAR drivers that came up on us like jackals on a limping antelope. They just whoosh, they were around, they were motorcycle. I mean, it was like Fast and Furious number 14 or something. It was crazy. But see, here's the thing. When all you have is what you think you need, when that's the only thing that you've got in your life, rules don't matter. We become what I call frighteningly practical. Whatever works, fine, as long as it gets the job done. If I have to lie, I'll lie. If I have to speed, I'll speed. If I have to steal, I'll steal. And if I have to do all those plus 10 more, I do. Because in my mind, the end justifies the means. And I got to tell you, it's insane. And I've been a part of it. I think we all have at times, right? We've all been a part of this. Well, this story right here that we're going to read about is insane. This is an insane story. Now, before we just jump into it, I feel like since we're at the last part of Judges, I just want to remind ourselves the cycles of the book of Judges, right? There's 3 cycles, and it goes through, it kind of moves like this as we go along the story. The nation of Israel normally drifts away from God. And then God raises up a nation and causes them to become servants of that nation. The people are under bondage, and they cry out to the Lord, and the Lord sends them a deliverer who then rescues them from that nation, and then there's usually a 40-year period of peace, and then it starts all over again. So there's this cycle that takes place. And so we've seen these judges act like superheroes that come in and save the day. But it doesn't seem to really have a long-term effect. It might work with 1 generation, maybe 2, but ultimately it doesn't solve the problem. I mean, we had guys like Ehud, Deborah, Gideon, Abimelech, Jephthah, Samson, and there's more, but those are the ones we focused on as we worked our way through watching God do this over and over and over again. Well, if you take a look at today's text, let's pick up Judges chapter 19, verse 1. And we're going to kind of pick our way through this, but there's a lot to read, but the story moves pretty fast. Here we go, Judges 19. In those days, Israel had no king. Now, I think you could just underline that because you get to the last sentence of the book of Judges, that same sentence is going to come up again. In those days, Israel had no king. There's a belief from the writer, I think it's Samuel. I think Samuel believed that if we just had a king, this story that I'm going to read about wouldn't have taken place. Okay. The other thing, it says, now a Levite who lived in a remote area in the hill country of Ephraim took a concubine from Bethlehem in Judah. Now, as we read a book, we normally think the second chapter follows the first chapter, the third chapter. So we normally think it's moving this way. But these 3 chapters actually should be placed at the beginning of the book. The reason I say that is if you go to chapter 20, verse 28, scroll down there. Let me find it real quick. 27. And the Israelites inquired of the Lord, and in those days the ark of the covenant of God was there with Phinehas, son of Eleazar, the son of Aaron. So this is happening during the days of Aaron's grandchildren. Well, that's long before the days of Samson. We're talking multi-generations. So this story right here kind of epitomizes the kind of mindset that was happening through the book of Judges. So remember when we said, hey, why is it that they keep sinning? Why do they keep doing this? Well, we're going to see here just absolutely how crazy life was and what they thought and how they thought. Okay? So this isn't like a snippet, like an example. Now, the book of Ruth, by the way, is another story, a snippet of the book of Judges, except it's a very positive story. This story is like the exact polar opposite of the book of Ruth, at least how you'll feel. So here we go, buckle up. Here it goes. So now a Levite who lived in a remote area in the hill country of Ephraim took a concubine from Bethlehem in Judah, but she was unfaithful to him. She left him and went back to her parents in Bethlehem, Judah. And after she had been there 4 months, her husband went to her to persuade her to return. He had with him his servant and 2 donkeys, and she took him into her parents' home. And when her father saw him, he gladly welcomed him. His father-in-law, the mother's father, or the woman's father, prevailed on him to stay. So he remained with him 3 days, eating and drinking and sleeping there. And on the 4th day, they got up early, and he prepared to leave. But the woman's father said to his son-in-law, "Oh, refresh yourself with something to eat, then you can go." So the 2 of them sat down to eat and drink together. And afterward, the woman's father said, "Please stay tonight and enjoy yourself." And when the man got up to go, his father-in-law persuaded him, so he stayed there that night. And on the morning of the 5th day, when he arose to go, the woman's father said, "Refresh yourself, wait till the afternoon." So the 2 of them ate together. Then when the man with his concubine and his servant got up to leave, his father-in-law, the woman's father, said, "Now look, it's almost evening. Spend the night here. The day is nearly over. Stay and enjoy yourself. Early tomorrow morning, you can get up and be on your way." But unwilling to stay another night, the man left and went towards Jebus, that's Jerusalem, with his 2 saddled donkeys and his concubine. All right. Chapter 1. What's this guy's tribe? What tribe is he from? He's from the tribe of, capital L. He's a Levite. Remember that. He's a priest. And this is just the grandchild of Aaron. So it's a pretty much an honor to be of the Levite tribe. He's very religious, knows the laws, works in the temple, or works in the tabernacle, I should say, knows the sacrifices. This guy's he's not far off from the root of how this all got started, okay? He's a close member of the family. Now, he takes for himself a concubine. Now, it should be noted, a concubine and a wife were to be treated in the same way. You might say, "But Mike, what's the difference?" A wife was someone that you married and you had a covenant with. And that covenant had stipulations between the families, between the clans. And so inheritance was transferred back and forth through a wife relationship. A concubine was someone that you just married, you loved, but you didn't have the covenant with them. But God said you were to treat them the exact same way. Did husbands have multiple wives and concubines? Yes. Does that mean the Bible recommends it? I wouldn't, okay? But all I can tell you is that that's what was happening back then. So this concubine decides that she's upset with her husband, so she goes back home and stays with her mom and dad for 4 months. She gets up, goes back to Bethlehem. Now it says here that she was unfaithful, but there's a lot of debate on that, whether she actually had an affair. It wouldn't seem like she did, because it wouldn't seem like he would go back and chase her down. Many people translate this to mean that there was an unrest in the marriage, and she was unfaithful to the relationship in that she left. She didn't stick around for that. Okay? Whatever the case may be, he goes back and he's going to speak to her heart. That's what the Hebrew there is. It says he's going to persuade her to come back. It actually means he's going to speak to her heart. So he comes back after 4 months, knocks on the door of his father-in-law's, opens the door. And I'm thinking, if I'm him, that the father-in-law is going to punch me in the face. But instead, he's like, "Hey, oopa, come on in. And you got flowers, I'm here to talk." And so he persuades the daughter to come back. Persuades his wife, concubine, to come back. But the father-in-law, for whatever reason, I don't know if he's needy. I don't know if the Levite's doing work around the house. I don't know what's going on. But he's like, "Hey, don't go yet. No, hey, it's late. Come on, just stay another day. We all have relatives like this, right? Hey, don't go. Well, finally he says, "Okay, listen, I got to go. So he packs up his concubine, his servants with him. He's got a couple donkeys, and they're going to head back home. It seems like this is a good ending. He did his part. If we stopped right here, things would be great. But it's going to turn really bad really quick here. So as they travel, they're heading back home. Here's what happens. Let me lost my page. When they were near Jabez, and the day was almost gone, the servant said to his master, "Come, let us stop at this city of the Jebusites and spend the night." His master said, "Oh no, we won't go into any city with those people who are not Israelites. We'll go to Gibeah." Okay, a little bit of prejudice happening here. He's like, "No, we don't. No. We're not stopping here." You know, if you've traveled between like San Diego and Bend, Oregon, there are some pretty shady spots. You're like, we're going to keep going. Okay, that's kind of the sense you have here. We're going to stop amongst our own people, the Israelites. So that evening, go back up. His master replied, "No, we won't go into any city whose people are not the Israelites. We'll go to Gibeah." He added, "Come, let's try to reach Gibeah or Ramah and spend the night in one of those places." So they went on, and the sun set as they neared Gibeah in Benjamin. And there they stopped to spend the night. They went and they sat in the city square, but no one took them in for the night. Now this is an important deal, because if you're an Israelite and you land in an Israelite town, it was more than just expected that somebody would open up their home and let you stay. So the inhospitableness of this town really is kind of weird. It's just a weird vibe in this town. So they're there in the city square, kind of waiting as they're like, "Hey, anyone going to invite us in?" Everyone's just walking by. No one's saying anything. So they're like, "Well, I guess we're going to be sleeping in the square. This is a terrible place." So they start putting up camp, and take a look what happens. Verse 16. That evening, an old man from the hill country of Ephraim, who was living in Gibeah, the inhabitants of the place were the Benjamites. Keep that in mind. This is the country of Benjamin. They came in from his work in the fields. When he looked and saw the traveler in the city square, the old man asked, "Where are you going? Where did you come from?" Well, he answered, "Well, we're on our way from Bethlehem in Judah to a remote area in the hill country of Ephraim where I live. I have been to Bethlehem in Judah, and now I'm going to the house of the Lord," the tabernacle. He's got to go to work. "No one has taken me in for the night. We have both straw and fodder for our donkeys and bread and wine for ourselves and your servant. Me, the women, and the young man with us, we don't really need anything." So this old man stops by, and he's from Ephraim. He lives in Gibeah. He comes in from a hard day's work. He's driving by, and he sees like this man and his wife and a servant and these donkeys sitting here. And he's like, "That's weird. They must be from out of town." They come up, "Hey, so where are you at?" And he said, "We're from Bethlehem, da-da-da-da." And so the old man's like, "Listen, you're welcome to my house, at my house," the old man said. "Let me supply whatever you need. Only don't spend the night in the square." I mean, that's like, what do you mean? "Yeah, you don't want to be here at night. You don't want to be..." "Yeah, but we're covered. We'll be fine." "No, you don't want to be here at night. Things happen." So he took him into his house and fed the donkeys, and they washed their feet, and they had something to eat and drink. And then the nightmare happens. Verse 22. While they were enjoying themselves, some of the wicked men of the city surrounded the house. And pounding on the door, they shouted to the old man who owned the house, "Bring out the man who came to your house so we can have sex with him." We're talking like The Walking Dead. The walkers come and your house is surrounded, and they're pounding on the doors, pounding on the windows. They're about to break in, and they're screaming for this Levite who they saw in the square. Fresh meat. They want him. And this is what the town's about to do. These people in the town of Gibeah. Well, it gets worse. The owner of the house, the old man, said to them, "No, my friends." Whoa, friends, let's time out. "No, my friends, don't be so vile. Since this man is my guest, don't do this outrageous thing. Look, here is my virgin daughter and his concubine. I will bring them out to you now, and you can use them and do to them whatever you wish. But as for this man, don't do such an outrageous thing." All right, Uh-oh, who be hubby? What? He goes outside. He says, whoa, 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 whoa. You know, it reminds me of like that scene with Chris Pratt in the new Jurassic Park movie with all the velociraptors. He's like this. These things are monsters. He's like, listen, don't get this guy, but I'll tell you what. I'll give you my young little girl and his concubine. You can do with them whatever you want. Listen to their response. But the men would not listen to him. This is the Levite. So the man took his concubine and sent her outside to them. He says, listen, babe, you got to go. I got to what? You got to go. Sent her outside. And they raped her and abused her throughout the night. And at dawn, they let her go. And at daybreak, the woman went back to the house where her master was staying. She fell down at the door and lay there until daylight. Ravaged her. And she stumbled back to the door. She can't even have the strength to open the door. It's almost this sense she crawls and scratches at the door and collapses right at the threshold. Now listen to this. When her master got up in the morning, well, hold on a second. When her master did what? Got up in the morning? What does that mean he was doing that night? He was sleeping. This guy's like, well, boy, that was a close one. Let's all go to bed. What? So he goes to sleep, wakes up in the morning, opened the door of the house, stepped out to continue on his way. It literally means he stepped over her, turns around, looks at her, and says, get up, let's go. Now, this is the same guy who was so chivalrous just a few verses back with flowers in hand, chased her down after 4 months of being gone. Right? So, get up, let's go. But there was no answer. You know why there was no answer? Because she was dead. She died. Then the man put her on his donkey and set out for home. Now, I'd love to tell you the next verse, the Lord steps in and just bug zaps the entire group. No, it gets worse. He puts her on his donkey, takes her back to his home. This is 29. When he reached home, he took a knife. He cut up his concubine limb by limb into 12 parts and sent them into all the areas of Israel. Everyone who saw it was saying to one another, such a thing has never been seen or done, not since the day the Israelites came up out of Egypt. Just imagine, we must do something, so speak up. He says, well, I got to tell everybody about this, but they're not going to believe this story. So he takes the body, chops it up with a knife, 12 parts, and sends a letter with it, and sends it out to all the tribes of Israel. You know, if you're from Dan, if you're the leader of the tribe of Dan, hey, FedEx, open it up. There's a foot and a note. And anywhere, has there been a VeggieTale movie about this? I don't know. I don't think there's been a VeggieTale. I don't think our college press children's curriculum has this story in it. Well, let's continue on. So what happens here is people get drunk on rage. When the people get this note, and obviously a foot or an arm or whatever it was, they get their part, they all come together and they're like, did you get what yeah, we are mad. And we're mad at the tribe of Benjamin. Not just Gibeah, because that's where it happened in the city, right? Oh, no. This isn't about Gibeah. This is about the entire people of Benjamin. Benjamin should know better. The Benjamites should know better. You know what we're going to do? We're so mad, we're going to kill the entire tribe of Benjamin. Now, how many tribes are there, by the way? 12 tribes? There's going to be 11. We're going to wipe out an entire section of our brotherhood over this event. They are so enraged. They are so bloodthirsty over what happens here. The shock value, the rage, Here's what they do. They all gather together And I won't read through all of this. You go down to verse 11. So all the Israelites got together and united as one against the city. And so there's hundreds of thousands of guys here, and they're going to attack Benjamin. So Judah goes first. You get down here to about 17. Israel, apart from Benjamin, mustered 400,000 swordsmen, all of them fit for battle. And you know who they're going to fight? They're going to fight their own family. They're going to fight their brother, the Benjamites. Now again, did all the Benjamites do this? No. Just Gibeah, and not even Gibeah, the whole city. Just a certain part of it. But they want to destroy the entire thing. So Judah goes first, and you think, well, God's got to be with the Israelites, right? He's going to go after Judah. I mean, Judah's going to go and wipe them out. Nope. Take a look here, verse 20. The Israelites went out to fight the Benjamites and took up battle positions against them at Gibeah. And the Benjamites came out of Gibeah and cut down 22,000 Israelites on the battlefield that day. Judah comes back and is like, wait a minute, whoa, God. I thought we're the good guys. They're the bad guys. God's like, go do it again, Judah. Judah goes, gets wiped out some more. They come back and we're like, what's going on? God says, okay, go a third time, but this time set an ambush. And that's what they do. They ambush the Benjamites, and here's what they do. They kill almost all of the Benjamites. When I say almost, there was only 600 left. 600 left that they chased into the desert. And those were all just men. They were all warriors. They went back through Benjamin, through the tribe, through the land of Benjamin. And they killed every woman, every child, and burned down every city in their rage, in their stupor. They just wanted to destroy them all. And the 600 ran out into the desert, hope they starve, hope they die. Does anybody here ever want to just nuke an entire neighborhood? Like the whole I-5 corridor needed to be wiped out. You know, just, you know. Do you remember what it felt like after 9/11? I remember hearing the term bomb them to the Stone Age. Anybody that wears a turban and has that skin color, just kill them all. Being drunk on rage. They think justice is about just wiping out the entire group. No questions, no asking of anything, just wipe them out. So when we get to the end of 20, you find out that there's only 600 left. Go down to verse 46 of chapter 20. On that day, 25,000 Benjamite swordmen fell, and all of them valiant fighters. But 600 of them turned and fled into the wilderness to the rock of Rimmon, and where they stayed for 4 months. And the men of Israel went back to Benjamin and put all the towns to the sword, including the animals and everything else they found. All the towns they came across, they set on fire. So 21 comes around, and they kind of sober up. When you get to chapter 21, it's almost like they finally, and they look around like the Tasmanian devil. Once they get done spinning, and they look, they realize all the carnage that they had just done. Because look at 21, it says, the men of Israel had taken an oath at Mizpah, not one of us will give his daughter in marriage to a Benjamite. And the people went to Bethel, where they sat before God until evening, raising their voices and weeping bitterly. Lord, God of Israel, they cried, why has this happened to Israel? Why should one tribe be missing from Israel today? And early the next day, the people built an altar and presented burnt offerings and fellowship offerings. And the Israelites asked, who from all the tribes of Israel has failed to assemble before the Lord? For they had taken a solemn oath that anyone who failed to assemble before the Lord at Mizpah was to be put to death. Now the Israelites grieved for the tribe of Benjamin, their fellow Israelites. Today, one tribe is cut off from Israel, they said. How can we provide wives for those who are left, since we have taken an oath by the Lord not to give them any of our daughters in marriage? Then they asked, which one of the tribes of Israel failed to assemble before the Lord at Mizpah? and they discovered that no one from Jabesh Gilead had come to the camp for assembly. For when they counted the people, they found that none of the people of Jabesh Gilead were there. So here's what happens. They're so broken, they finally sit down and they realize what they've done. We just amputated an entire part of our family. We said things, we did things, we just killed an entire part of our family. Well, how are we going to fix this? Because here's the thing. How many men were hiding in the desert? 600. And what was their gender? Men. Which means, guess what? When those 600 die, it's over. There is no more Benjamin. So they realize, well, what are we going to do? How do we fix this? Well, they're like, well, and we already made an oath that our daughters aren't going to be the ones that are going to fix this. We're not going to give our daughters to a Benjamite, right? We feel bad, but come on. I mean, we're not going to we're not going to let them into our house. So we got to figure out something. So they asked the question, so who didn't show up at Mizpah when we were doing this whole prayer thing? And they're like, oh, Jabesh Gilead. We didn't see any of those folks there. Oh, okay. Well, remember we took the solemn oath. They didn't show up. We're going to kill them all, right? And because we're getting really good at killing people, let's fix it through them. So here's what they do. Take a look at this. This is their idea on how to fix this problem. So the assembly, verse 10, chapter 21, so the assembly sent 12,000 fighting men with instructions to go to Jabesh Gilead and put to the sword those living there, including the women and the children. But they make a slight turn. This is what you're to do, they said. Kill every male and every woman who is not a virgin. They found among the people living in Jabesh Gilead 400 young girls. It says women, young girls. These are virgin girls. They would be in our Sunday school class right now. 400 young girls who had never slept with a man, and they took them to the camp of Shiloh at Canaan. So what they do is they kill this entire town, grab the little girls, chain them up, and take them to the desert. And they come up to the people of Benjamin, the tribe of Benjamin, and they say, hey, listen, our bad. We kind of overreacted. We killed like everybody. Sorry. But hey, here's the thing. I know we killed your wives and we killed your daughters and we killed your kids. But hey, we've got 400 little girls. Take them to be your wives. And they do. Take a look at this. Then the whole assembly sent an offering of peace to the Benjamites at the rock of Rimmon. So the Benjamites returned at that time and were given the women of Jabesh Gilead who had been spared, but there were not enough for all of them. So they get the 400 and they say, hey, thank you guys. We get it. You overreacted. Cool and all. But here's the thing. There's 600 of us and there's only 400 girls. We need 200 more. Okay, what are we going to do? Well, here we go. The people grieved for Benjamin because the Lord had made a gap in the tribes of Israel. Number one, that was not of the Lord. And the elders of the assembly said, with the women of Benjamin destroyed, how shall we provide wives for the men who are left? And the Benjamite survivors must have heirs, they said, so that a tribe of Israel will not be wiped out. We can't give them our daughters because, we already said we wouldn't do that. Verse 19. But look, there is an annual festival of the Lord at Shiloh, which lies north of Bethel, east of the road that goes from Bethel to Shechem and south of Lebanon. So they instructed the Benjamites, here, we know there's a party coming. It's kind of close to you out near Shiloh. Here's what we're going to do. You guys hide in the vineyards and watch when the young girls, when the little girls of Shiloh come out joining in the dancing, rush the vineyards, each of you, seize one of them and return to the land of Benjamin. And when their fathers or brothers complain to us, we'll just say to them, do us the favor of helping them because we did not get wives for them during the war. So when their dads come and say, hey, what was that all about? We got to go do something. Hey, you're doing us a favor by doing them a favor. It's all cool. That's what he says. That's it. So that is what the Benjamites did. And while the young women were dancing, each man caught one and carried her off to be his wife. It did not say that he shackled her. They were small enough to pick up and carry. To now be the new wives. And at that time the Israelites left that place and went home to their tribes and clans, each to his own inheritance. And verse 25, in those days Israel had no king. Everyone did what was right in their own eyes. That's the end of the book of Judges. Happy Thanksgiving, everyone. Have a good week. Did you know that was in your book? That story's in your book? The water to the wine one's classic. This one here, you'll never forget that. So what happens here is we find that as I'm preparing this lesson, it's like I'm trying to find the good guy anywhere. Is it the Levite? Well, he was cool until he threw his concubine out there and then stepped over and get up. Is it the old man? Well, he seemed cool until he offered his virgin daughter and, they all just kind of do their thing. Is it the Benjamites? Well, obviously not the Benjamites, or not the men of Gibeah, obviously, but maybe the Benjamites, they were victimized, they're not a part of Gibeah, but then you find out they're the ones that are hauling off little girls off to the desert. Well, it can't be the Benjamites. Well, who's the good guy here then? I don't see any of them. It's not the Israelites that come to justice and vengeance, because they go through and they come up with the demented plan to steal little girls, and they're the ones that wipe out, almost genocide an entire tribe. There's no... What the heck? And maybe that's where we begin. At the front end and the back end, I think the author Samuel says something. He says, the Israelites did not have a king. And then at the end, they didn't have a king, so they did what was right in their own eyes. Samuel believed that if they just had a king, maybe this wouldn't have happened. Well, we're going to get a king coming up in the next books in the narrative, right? 1st, 2nd Samuel, 1st, 2nd Kings. We're going to see God give them kings. And God's going to say to Samuel, God's going to say to the audience here in the reading, you think a king is the problem? You don't have a king? I'll give you kings. I'll give you a slew of kings. That's not the problem. This is not the problem. There is a problem deeply set in the heart of man that you and I and everybody wrestle with. Now I know some of you here say, oh Mike, hey listen, I would never be a part of that. I would never do that. That's crazy. That's ISIS. That's like Shiite weird stuff. I'm not doing that. Well, let me tell you something. Jesus would say, you've heard it said, thou shalt not murder. But I tell you, if you hate someone in your heart, you've murdered them. Imagine if you took everything that was spiritual that Jesus said was real and made it tangible. You've heard it said, thou shalt not commit adultery. But I tell you, you lust in your heart, you're doing it. Everything, you turn this inside out and we come to realize that each and every one of us has got this stuff in there. So I went through the story, and I took a look at possible solutions to the problem, right? The problem with this stuff, right? This unsettling problem that lingers in the human heart. And the first one is this: a king won't fix it. How many of you have come to realize it does not matter who won the election, it's going to fix the problem in your heart? Not. It's not. You think, oh, well, this, maybe not me, but the country. You think the country, let me tell you, you know what makes a country? A bunch of individuals with the same problem lingering deep in their heart. Having the right person and making the right decisions is somehow going to fix that? It won't. It won't. Ecclesiastes screams that out. Solomon, the king himself, says, it is vanity if you think that's the case. You're chasing after the wind. So if it's not going to be a king, I look here, religion won't fix it. This guy who had the concubine, his religion was what again? What was his tribe? Levite. If anybody should know better, it should be a Levite, right? Levite, with all the religion, with all of the external stuff that seems to be godly, it does not fix the human condition that's deep in our hearts. No matter how much religion you throw at it. I'm sure that, I don't know if the Levites said, man, if I just would have went to church one more time, if I would have just prayed a little harder, if I would have just gave a little more to the church, if I would have just been a part of Sunday school class, if I just would have went, let me tell you something, no amount of giving, attendance, worship, singing is going to fix this thing inside of us. And making it bigger, more liturgy, brighter screens is not going to fix the problem. You say, well, Mike, why even get new screens? Because I like new screens. It's going to be nice. But it's not going to fix my problem. It won't. If religion won't do it, and a king won't do it, justice isn't going to fix it. Those guys come down from all over Israel and they say, man, we're going to put a whooping on them. We're just going to bomb them to the Stone Age. We're going to teach them a lesson. We're going to show them. I'm going to write them an email. I'm going to text them. I'm going to send them a letter. I'm going to face them. I'm going to go to their house. I'm thinking about the own things that I've done, and I got to be really, whoa, don't share that. So, but the things that I've done, thinking, well, that's going to fix them. That's going to show them. Justice. If I just had justice, if things were just fair, if they just said they were sorry and they just groveled, or if they just lost their job, then that would really make me feel good, and then I'd know that then it would take care of this thing inside of me. Let me tell you something. Even if that all happened, it would still be there. It would still be lingering there. And the last one I put here is my own thinking won't fix it. I love Judges 21:7 when they ask the question to themselves, how can we provide wives for those who are left? Oh, I got this idea. We'll just kill a people group, steal their little girls, and then we'll kidnap some from over here, and that'll fix the problem. That's what they thought. In their mind, they thought that that was the right thing to do. And you know what? If you don't, it makes perfect sense because of the problem we have. We got a problem in here. And it eats away at us every day. It grinds away on us every day. The Old Testament reveals this to us. When we go to the book of Hebrews, the book of Hebrews speaks to this. Because the book of Hebrews tells us that the Old Testament had a system in place to take away the penalty, but not take care of the problem. See, the problem isn't the penalty. The problem's something deeper. Take a look at this. He talks about the sacrifice system of bulls and goats and lambs and all that was taking place in the temple. And he says this, Hebrews 9:9. This is an illustration for the present time, indicating that the gifts and the sacrifices being offered were not able, here it is, to clear the conscience of the worshiper. Hebrews 9:14 says this, how much more then will the blood of Christ, who through the eternal Spirit offered himself unblemished to God, cleanse our consciences from the acts that led to death, so that we may serve the living God. Hebrews 10:3. But those sacrifices are an annual reminder, because it's impossible for the blood of bulls and goats to take away sins. Hebrews 10:19, he goes on, the writer says, therefore, brothers, since we have confidence to enter the most holy place by the blood of Jesus, by a new and living way opened for us through the curtain, that is his body, and since we have a great high priest over the house of God, let us draw near to God with a sincere heart. Here it is. A sincere heart in full assurance of faith, having our hearts sprinkled to cleanse us from a guilty conscience, and having our bodies washed with pure water. Early on in my Christian walk, I used to think of God as a very delusional grandfather. My grandmother was like this. My grandmother lived on the coast. She only saw me once every couple of months. But when I came to her house, She doted on me. I was her favorite. Is there anybody that was a favorite of their grandparents at all? I mean, in a good way. If you were beaten, I don't want to hear about it. All right, so in a good way, right? Right, in a good way. She used to make me root beer floats out of this chilled mug, and she pulled it out, and it was chilled just for me. You know, my dad, his mom, yeah, you get your own. But for me, I had this mug, chilled mug, and she poured it in. Oh, and it would just fizz up. It was so good. It was mine. She had no idea who I am. She just loved me, for Mike. Now I know some people say, well, Mike, that's exactly how God loves us. Well, yes, but no. It's bigger than that. You see, my grandmother didn't know me. She didn't know what I was doing at night when I was back at the house. She didn't know what I was looking at. The things I was doing in the middle of the night with my friends when we'd sneak out. The things I would say. She just saw me, and without knowing me, she just loved me. Now I got to tell you, even in that, we all say amen, right? We'll take that. I never volunteered that information to my grandma. You know why? Because I was afraid. I was afraid that I wouldn't get that cold, frosty mug. So as long as she thought that I was this thing, I would be loved. As long as I presented well, I would get all the perks that come with the presentation. This is not my grandmother's fault in the least. And I don't even think it's my fault. It's just what I did. The greatest need that you, I, every person on the planet needs is forgiveness. Is for God to see us as we truly are, with all of our stuff, and say, Mike, I forgive you. Because here's the thing. Everything I've ever done wrong has been ultimately towards God. It may be, another person may feel the effects of it, but I'm really fighting with God. I fought with my stepmother, but it's because me and God were having a bad thing. Everything falls back to God. Which is why forgiveness comes from God to us. And in that forgiveness, I have acceptance and love. Do you see how that's different than with my grandmother? With my grandmother, there was always a sense of hiding. There was always a sense of, I'm so glad she loves me. I'm so glad she doesn't know X, Y, and Z. To go before God and to say, Mike, I know you're X, Y, and Z, and I forgive you, and I love you. Because I know you. This is what every person on the planet is striving for in all of the insanity that's going on around us. To know that you're forgiven. And that God forgives you. And I know it may seem crazy and it may seem insane on his part to do it, but for him, he has absolutely no regrets about his love for you. And when these stories look so crazy, which only shows how great God's love is for us. Amen? Which is how great it is. How he loves us. There's two places. If you go to Mark chapter 2, Jesus is telling the story of, or the story is being told of Jesus in his house. And you remember the friends of a paralytic dig up the roof and lower him down. Do you remember the story? And they lower him down on this pallet of sorts. And that's a great story in and of itself. But when he comes down right before Jesus, Jesus is teaching. He's in front of the Pharisees, in front of a big crowd of people. He teaches. Jesus looks at the crowd. He looks at the man. Does anybody remember what he says to the man there? It's just one line. Anybody remember what he says to him? It seems like a letdown in the story. He says, "My son, your sins are forgiven." Now you would think, what does this man really need? I don't think the guys lowered him down there so he can get his sins forgiven. Why do you think the men lowered him down there? So he could walk. But Jesus knows what he really needs. He doesn't need to walk. He needs to be forgiven. That's what he really needs. Sometimes we're so caught up in what we don't have or what's going on around us. Jesus speaks to us and says, no, listen. You think that's going to fix that problem. That's not the greatest gift God will ever give any of us is the gift of forgiveness. Remember when the woman comes into Simon the Pharisee's house and finds Jesus, and she falls on her knees and weeps over his feet, and so she dries his feet, her tears with her hair, and Jesus talks to Simon and he says, those who've been forgiven little love little, and those who've been forgiven much love much. Then he turns to the woman and he says, your sins are forgiven. That's what she needed. Jesus didn't say, hey, listen, I know the whole prostitute thing's not a good career choice. We're going to get you in a new career program. We're going to make sure you get this shored up. We're going to make sure we get you into new housing, do this, do that, do this. We're going to make sure that he doesn't do any of that. She did that because that's not what it is. The fact of the matter is your heart, my heart, all of our hearts, at the end of all days, we get to this place where we say, can I be forgiven? Now I know many of us here are like, but Mike, it's not so much me. I just need to forgive other people. I struggle with forgiving other people. I'm okay with forgiveness. I'm struggling to forgive other people. No, let me just say this. I think the struggle with forgiving other people stems from the fact that you're struggling with forgiveness from yourself. Because here's the thing. If you stand of a place above the person you're trying to forgive, you'll never forgive them. I'm fine. This person needs to be forgiven. No, you need forgiveness. And the moment that you receive unearned forgiveness, which is what forgiveness is, unearned forgiveness, then you have something to give away to somebody else. I've got to come before the Lord and say, oh, all this stuff I've been doing, I need to be known. So Jesus, at the end of his life here on earth, screams out to the Father. Anybody remember the line that he screams out to them concerning us? What's he say about us? Forgive them, Father. They don't know what they're doing. These people in this book, none of them knew what they were doing. They need forgiveness. Just like me. So Father, this morning, I just pray that you would encourage hearts. That you would speak to us about our own life. Father, this is definitely not a message about shaming. Quite the opposite. This is a message about receiving a gift that we desperately need to say yes to. To know that you, God, who knows all things, forgives us and continues to forgive us. Because you know our hearts, and we don't know why we do what we do. But we know we need forgiveness. And in that place, we would experience love and grace and humility that would transform us from the inside out, that would begin to cause us to see ourselves differently, to see others differently, to see our world differently, that fear wouldn't be such a factor, that our mistakes are simply that, they're mistakes that are forgiven by God, and that He loves us, and He always has, and He always will. So Father, I pray that this morning for us here. and ask God you would encourage our hearts. Lord, if there's even one this morning that's never experienced what it means to be told they're forgiven by God, that all that stuff they can be set free from. They can be cleansed of their unrighteousness. They can be cleansed from that. So God, I just pray that if that person's here this morning, that they wouldn't go another day carrying around the junk. So God, we love you. And it's in your name we pray. Amen. We're going to stand and